Ford, and I'm here today to talk to you on behalf of the Lighthouse Club Construction Charity, who've been dealing a lot with the Supply Chain Sustainability School. We've done a couple of other lunchtime webinars. Today's session is about work-life balance, as I say. Just to introduce myself, I'm Bill Ford. I don't work directly for the Lighthouse Club. I'm a self-employed MHFA trainer, which is mental health first aid. I do a lot of work training mental health first aid courses. I do a great deal of work for the Lighthouse Club, who work extensively, as I'm sure some of you are aware, in the construction sector. So in the parlance of the construction industry, I guess I'm what you'd call a subbie or a subcontractor. I actually work for myself, but the Lighthouse Club do a great deal of work in construction, part of which is these webinars. So as I said, today's session is about how we might look at addressing our work-life balance. The reason we talk about this, we do a lot of work around mental health. We do these sessions on resilience and on managing stress, and on work-life balance, and on mindfulness, because these things all can have an influence on protecting and looking after and improving our own mental health. Before I get into the body of the actual webinar itself, I'm going to play you a very brief video in a moment by a guy called Bill Hill, who's from the Lighthouse Club charity. He's the Chief Executive Officer, explaining about the work they do and also about some of the fundraising activities they've got going at the moment. Obviously, during the course of the spring and summer, when generally speaking, there'll be lots and lots of fundraising events. They've all been decimated this year, so Bill's interested just to talk to you about that. I'm talking to you today from Gloucestershire in Stroud, where I'm based, where I do all my work from these days under COVID. I do a lot of webcasting like this. I can see there's quite a few of you on this call. We can interact through the chat. There'll be a Q&A session at the end. But before we get going, I'm just interested where some of you are sitting listening to me from. If any of you want to pop in the chat whereabouts in the country you are, I shall see it come up on my feed here, hopefully. Also, I'll know you can all hear me that way as well. So if anybody wants to pop in whereabouts they're listening from. Cheshire, I've got somebody in Cheshire. It's a long way from Gloucestershire. Sunny Wakefield in God's own county. London, Lynch Plantar in Hemel Hempstead, Hertfordshire. West London, lots of you in the southeast. Kent, Liverpool. Hi from Carlisle. You've got the furthest north so far. The fine city of Liverpool, Mid Wales. Mid Wales where the sun's shining. I find that very hard to believe. And Dorset down there. Wonderful. So we've got people from all over the place. Excellent. Well, at least you can hear me. That's always a good start. Leamington Spa. That's not too far up the road from me. Huddersfield. Somebody else in God's own county. Okay, thanks for that, guys. Right, so I'm going to just hand over very briefly for 3 or 4 minutes to Bill Hill, who, as I say, is the CEO of the Lighthouse Club, who's going to explain to you what they do, why they do it, why it's so important, and it's a bit of a begging bowl as well, I guess, for you. So it's about their Christmas cracker promotion, so here we go. If I can get my slides to work.
For over 60 years, the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity has been dedicated to the health and well-being of the construction workforce and their families in the UK and Ireland. The charitable services we deliver are completely free to all our industry workforce and allied trades. However, as a result of the global pandemic and pressures of lockdown, our construction industry helpline is receiving an unprecedented number of calls from construction workers and their families in crisis. Over 50% of the cases we manage are from middle-aged self-employed tradesmen, agency staff, or workers on zero-hour contracts. Many of these workers live from week to week and are often only 1 or maybe 2 paydays away from poverty. They have nowhere else to turn and they need our help to feed their families. As a charity, we rely heavily on event income to fund our helpline. However, due to the pandemic, our fundraising event program has been decimated. So at a time when the construction industry needs us most, our ability to support our community is at its lowest ebb. That is why we need your help. But it's not all gloom and doom. We can still have a laugh and make it fun. Like many companies, we have innovated and we are hoping you will join us in going crackers this Christmas. Simply go to our charity website and buy our Christmas e-cards and distribute to your employees, contractors, suppliers and customers. And inside every Christmas e-card will be a chance to win up to £10,000 in our Lighthouse Christmas Cracker draw. Everyone entering the draw will be invited to our huge live The Lighthouse Club virtual Christmas party on the 18th of December. The show will be packed full of entertainment and it will host the live draw. So don't forget to buy your Lighthouse Christmas crackers and share a bit of festive cheer. Goodness knows, we all need some of that. I know this is a difficult time for everyone, so whether you're in a position to help our funding or not, please ensure you communicate our helpline to your friends and colleagues, or get them to download our free construction industry helpline support app. Our mission is to ensure that no construction worker or their family should be alone in a crisis. Let's not talk about the new norm. Let's talk about the new better for this generation and the next. I hope that we can count on your generosity to make this mission a reality. Thank you.
So that was Bill's message from the Lighthouse Club about their appeal. If any of you have the authority within your company to buy a batch of crackers to distribute to your suppliers, contractors, employees as Christmas gifts, then please feel free. If you don't have the authority to do that, maybe you could speak to the person that does. The Lighthouse charity do an immense amount of incredibly valuable work within construction. Okay, before I get into the meat of the presentation, I just need to remind you all that this session is being recorded by the Supply Chain Sustainability School. I hope that's okay with everybody, but we do need to inform you of that. You can obviously let Rosie know afterwards if you'd rather not, but just so as you're aware, the session is being recorded. Okay, I'm going to turn my video feed off now. I'll turn it back on at the end when we get to the Q&A, but this way you can just look at the slides and just listen. Maybe it'll make it easier if you're listening on a small portable mobile phone or tablet device. So, what are our aims of today? Well, first of all, I want to talk and understand about what work-life balance is and what it isn't as well, I guess. I think it's important that we work to recognise why we need to be conscious about our work-life balance and try, if we can, to make changes to improve it for ourselves. How might we do that? Well, that's an easy thing to say, and it's a much harder thing to do. So I'm going to talk about some practical techniques that we can all use to try and just manipulate and tip things slightly more balanced for us to improve our quality of life and ultimately, I guess, our quality of work as well. As I said, there'll be a Q&A at the end where we'll use the chat box where you can put questions through. Rosie's going to moderate those for me. I may not know the answers. They may be open-ended questions, but we'll have a discussion maybe about some of the things we've talked about. So what is work-life balance? Have a think about that and what it means to you. It's different for all of us, I guess. There isn't any right or wrong answer, and everybody is going to have a slightly different perspective on work-life balance. I guess for me, I would say that work-life balance is a concept that encourages us to split our time and our energy between work and the other important aspects of our life, which are not just family, social life, friends, but also ourselves individually, our physical and our mental health and our well-being. And I think it's really important that we're conscious that we do spend some time to look after ourselves. And the analogy I always use is when you get on an aeroplane, when we could fly, and one day we'll be flying again, I guess, and the cabin crew give us a safety briefing before we take off. And they show us where the emergency exits are, they show us about seat belts and where the life jackets are. And then they talk about if the cabin loses pressure, that oxygen masks will fall from the ceiling. And I'm sure many of you can remember that the first thing they really emphasize is that before you try and help anybody else, you must put your own mask on. Even if you have your most treasured children there, you need to put your own mask on first, because if we don't look after ourselves, we can't help others. So work-life balance doesn't mean an equal balance between work and the rest of our lives, of course. How can we imagine trying to schedule an equal number of hours between all of those things? It just wouldn't be realistic. So our work-life balance will be different each and every day. The right balance will change depending on our current situation. For example, commitments, relationships, caring responsibilities, whether we have young children or aged parents or so on, or whether we're starting a new job or a new career, or maybe entering retirement and going through some big life changes like that. So work-life balance is really different for everybody. There is no right or wrong answer to what we're talking about today, and nobody can tell me or you what the right balance is for us as individuals. We really need to try and work it out for ourselves. And as I say, it will change on a week-by-week, month-by-month and year-by-year basis. Our own priorities will change. In terms of understanding, what might we have to balance? Well, there is a little booklet that we can download for this. I don't know if you've got access to it, but it's available on the Lighthouse Club website. And one of the things it puts in there is a blank pie chart where we can each of us individually just draw a diagram like that, where we apportion which parts of our lives take the most time and so on and so forth. And there we've just got work, exercise, family, friends. It might be far more complicated for us, some of us, and less complicated for others. Just look at this chart here. This is a typical, I guess, distribution where work takes the majority of somebody's time. My life used to be very like this. I think now I do this training. I actually work part-time, so my graph has changed considerably from what it used to be. But I think this is fairly typical, where work and family take up pretty much all of our time. And there's very little else for relationships, hobbies, and so on, and time for ourselves, me time, if you like. But what we might try and do, even while we're still working, is actually reprioritize that. You can see there, we've altered the priorities and tried to spread things out a little more evenly. Maybe with a bit more time, as you can see there, for ourselves. We're still not neglecting our families or our work, hobbies, social media, and so on and so forth. And if you do have access to the booklet or you want to download it, you can use the toolkits on page 4 of that to draw your own pie chart to represent what your life might be like today, and then give some thought to how you might look at trying to change it. Why might you want to do that? I said we were going to talk about the benefits of work-life balance. Let's have a look here. Let's consider what those benefits might be. I've split these into mental well-being, physical well-being, and social well-being. And again, if you have the workbook, you can see some of these listed there. If we improve our mental well-being, we generally will have a more positive outlook. And being more positive in our outlook almost inevitably will improve our state of mind, and that will in turn improve our productivity. And I mean that in a work context and also in a home life as well. We're likely to feel more relaxed. In turn, by being more relaxed, we are likely also to feel more fulfilled. And these things have huge benefits for our mental health. It's a fact that 1 in 4 people in a typical year will experience some sort of mental ill health issue. Maybe not serious, maybe it would be serious, but 1 in 4 people will experience such things. And the more we can do to protect ourselves against that, the better. In terms of our physical well-being, we'll have increased levels of energy. Research shows that by doing that, we will also sleep better. We will have better quality sleep. And by sleeping better, we actually improve our physical health as well. We'll have a stronger immune system. And that's possibly more important than ever at the moment. In turn, physically, that makes it less likely that we will be susceptible to bugs and become unwell. In terms of our social lives, we will generally have stronger, more meaningful relationships. And again, the mental health benefits of those are very well documented and researched. We will have better resilience. We will be able to cope better with the ups and downs, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune that life throws our way. And these are all evidenced, and we do another one of these webinars specifically about resilience, and we can talk in more detail about that. But a better work-life balance helps us in that regard. It reduces our risk of having relationship conflict with turmoil in our life. And again, in terms of working life, it makes it more likely that we will have improved and better working relationships. That's good for us as individuals. It's also good for our employer as well, and our family and our wider family too. So have a think, have a look, download the booklet from the Lighthouse Club website and have a look and consider about your work-life balance. And now, knowing how beneficial it is to have an improved work-life balance, maybe you could try and reapportion some of these sections of this pie chart. Remember, work's always going to take the biggest part of your working day. That's inevitable. We can't have an ideal split all the time. But let's go through some practical tips that might help you do this to achieve this all-elusive work-life balance. We all know the pressures that we have that impact on us, our work, the benefits of a good work-life balance, and so on and so forth. So how might we achieve that? How can we make it tip more towards the right and less towards the left? Answers could be along these lines. Hold on, sorry, I've gone too far there. Taking a break from routine is hugely helpful for us. As I've mentioned, making time for ourselves. When I say taking a break from our routines, what do I mean by that? Well, we all slip into unconscious behaviours that we do all the time. I bet when you clean your teeth, you start on the same side every day and then the other side, same when you put your shoes and socks on. And there's lots of research that shows us by changing our patterns of behaviour occasionally, we can open new neural pathways in our brains, and that is good for our mental health, our resilience, and in turn for our quality of life. So make sure, as I've said, you've got time for your personal life and not just work. Set manageable daily goals. I think it's really important that we bear in mind that we can only do so much in each day. And the more control we can try and have over our work, the less stressed we become. If you feel that your manager is asking you to do stuff that's more over and above what you're able to do and that it's going to cause you issues, I think sometimes there's really no harm in actually speaking up about that and trying to offer an alternative, not just complaining, but offering an alternative solution to what's bothering us. Sometimes we need to consider working smarter and not longer. When we face a big project at work or at home, it can seem daunting, can't it? But there's an old adage of how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is a little bit at a time. So we need to divide these things into smaller, manageable tasks that we can focus one at a time rather than all at once, and treat ourselves to little rewards upon completion, whether it's a 5-minute break, a walk out to a coffee shop when we can do that. But taking small breaks during the daytime is hugely beneficial to us. And at the moment, when we're working at home under COVID, which lots of us are, I think it's very easy to come and lock ourselves away and spend all day in a really isolated position. And that's really not good for our state of mind. And I think COVID has brought this out in a lot of people, that working from home does have a lot of advantages. And for many people, it works really well in terms of helping improve their quality of life, their work-life balance. Maybe we've lost a couple of hours a day that we were having to spend commuting, and that's great. For some people, it's maybe less so. It depends on our position at home, how much space, how much room we've got. But certainly we can become more socially isolated. So try and take little breaks and actually communicate with others. Tune in, listen to your favorite music. This can increase concentration. It can improve your mood. It can reduce stress and anxiety. It can also stimulate creativity. And I know it's not always possible to listen to music at work, but sometimes you can, particularly working at home. You can try it in your breaks, or when you're pottering around the house, when you're driving, when we go back to commuting to work. And communication there. Communicate effectively. As I've said, be honest with your colleagues or your supervisor. If you feel unable to complete all the tasks that you're being given, or you're unsure of a particular process, there's no shame in speaking out. It's actually a sign of strength to put your hand up and say, I can't do this, I need some help. And if it's done in the right way, we can create a culture of mutual support in a workplace. And that is hugely beneficial for us in all sorts of ways. If you feel you've got too much to do, or you're unsure of the process and you feel a little bit uncertain, the chances are you're not alone. So when you're approaching this with maybe your line manager or your colleagues, rather than just railing against what you're being asked to do, try and suggest alternative, practical solutions. Try not to overcommit. Don't be too hard on yourself. We need to remember that nobody is perfect. In a few minutes, I'm going to play you a short video about work-life balance. And one of the points it makes is that we can't be brilliant at everything all the time. So allow yourself to be human. And sometimes we won't do a perfect job. Sometimes we'll fail. All we can do is strive to do the best that we can. I think this next point is particularly relevant, but also particularly hard at the moment under COVID-19. Drawing a line between work and home life. We need to try and make sure we don't bring work home. Now, when we're working at home, that's doubly difficult. I absolutely accept that. But we need to try and ensure that we keep the two things separate. If you possibly can, try and have a space at home which is only for work, and then leave it in the evening. Now, I appreciate that if your space at home to work is your dining table, you can't do that. But maybe for other people, we can and just don't. But we need to make sure that we have a firm delineation between when we're working and when we're not working. So try, if it's a dining table, just clear everything away. And I'll tell you something I do. You might notice when I had my video on earlier, I've got a business shirt on today. When I'm sitting down to work at home, even if I'm not doing any video calls, even if I'm not going to actually see anybody over my webcam, I actually put the clothes on that I would wear to go to work. I don't sit around in tracky bottoms and a t-shirt. I do sometimes if I'm not working, but when I'm working, I dress for work. And that psychologically makes me feel like I'm at work. But conversely, when I've finished, it makes me feel like I'm not at work. So I think we need to do everything we can to draw a line between our working life and our home life. And I know with phones and email and so on and so forth, that's not an easy thing to do. I do know some companies that have a rule whereby after a certain time in the evening, they don't send any email internally to one another. In fact, I know of some businesses where they actually turn their email servers off, so you can't send internal emails. In fact, I know there are some countries in Europe, France specifically, where it is the law that people can actually request that and their employers are not allowed to send them emails after a certain time in the evening. And that is because research shows it's beneficial to people. So drawing a line between work and home is not an easy thing, but it's something we need to try and do. In terms of our private lives, our life at home, I've put there, don't overcommit. It's okay to say no. Do you ever feel under pressure when you look at your calendar and you see all the family stuff that you've got to do? Some of those things we have to do. Maybe some of them we don't have to do. And an example I would give you for that is I mentioned at the very top of this webinar that I'm talking to you from Stroud in Gloucestershire today. Well, my hometown and my wife and mine's hometown is actually Nottingham. We lived until about 18 years ago. We'd lived all our lives in Nottingham for 40 odd years. And then we moved to Stroud, excuse me, for work reasons. When we first moved down here, after 40 years up in Nottingham, obviously we had lots of family, in-laws on both sides, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, friends, and so on and so forth. And we used to go back up to Nottingham on a pretty regular basis. We've been here nearly 20 years now, so a lot less now. But we used to go up a lot. We had young children, and we always felt obliged to go and see my wife's parents and my brothers and her brothers and friends. And I remember one weekend we were travelling up on a Friday night, due to come back on a Sunday night with young children. And we actually found ourselves in a position where we'd agreed and promised to go and visit 8 different lots of people. Now, that ceases to become fun or a pleasure. It becomes like a military operation where you get somewhere, you just unload all the stuff for the kids, and before you know it, you've got to pack up and move on. So we actually just started to say no. We started to say, look, we're coming up, we're going to come and see you or you, but we can't see you all because it's just too much. So we stopped overcommitting. We found that we were trying to please everybody all the time. And in actual fact, it just didn't really suit anybody, least of all maybe the people we were going to see, because we'd only be there for an hour or two. So it's really important to try not to overcommit. Be a little bit selfish, maybe. Stay active. I know this is very common advice from a physical point of view. It's well known for its physical health benefits, but regular exercise is clinically proven to help reduce stress. For many people experiencing clinical depression, exercise is as effective and in some cases more effective than antidepressants. It's also proven to help with anxiety, and it helps people cope better with adversity. In other words, it helps improve basic resilience in people, as well as alleviating some mental health issues. Get support. Talk with friends and family. This can be really important to our success at improving our mental health at home or at work. I think it's really, you hear a lot these days, people using the expression, it's okay not to be okay, and it's not weak to speak. These are things I'm sure you've heard people quoting in the media, and they're becoming a little bit cliched, but like most cliches, they become cliches because they're true. It's really important that we speak up. If we feel that things are too much for us, we need to talk to one another. We need to open up and explain to people how we feel. And I don't want to gender stereotype, but men are particularly bad at doing this. I think two of the most toxic words in the English language are man up. I think lots of men feel they need to be strong, they need to be there for everybody. Well, we all need some support from time to time, and it's not weak to speak. It's actually, I think, requires a great deal of strength to put your hand up and say, I can't cope with this. I need a bit of help here. Look after your body. Treat your body right. Being in good shape physically obviously increases your tolerance to stress as well and reduces illness, as well as the physical benefits. We need to eat well. We need to exercise, get plenty of rest, and look after ourselves. Some of us, inevitably, when we get stressed, we have coping strategies, some of which are maybe less helpful than others. Trying to get plenty of sleep is very helpful. Having a few extra glasses of wine or maybe a few more cigarettes is not really going to help. It might help in the short term, but in the long term, it certainly won't. And lastly, on my seesaw of balancing things here, unplug. What do we mean by that? Well, the same technology that makes it so easy for us to do our jobs these days can also burn us out if we use them 24/7. People can find themselves constantly checking their social medias, or I'm sure you've all heard of FOMO, fear of missing out. How often in the evening do you leave your phone in another room and maybe just go and sit down with your partner on your own, whatever it might be, and just watch the TV without a mobile phone, without a tablet being on the table next to you, buzzing every few minutes with some like or some new post or whatever? Sometimes I think it's hugely helpful to just have a break and concentrate on something else that we can get absorbed into, whether that's watching a film or a documentary on the TV, or going for a walk or a bike ride without our phone, or cooking, having a cuppa with a friend, just interacting with people, whatever it is. I think sometimes we need to cut away from all the electronic devices that we become so hooked on, because frankly, they can be very unhelpful for us. Okay, I mentioned about a video that I wanted to play, and I'm going to play it now. This is actually made in association with the BBC. It's about work-life balance, and it should be self-explanatory.
This is the Audi R8. It's a highly efficient and compelling car. Its engine produces an astonishing 199 kW at 6,500 RPM and a torque of 330 Nm at 4,000 RPM. Now, part of the reason that it's so efficient, and part of what makes us human beings comparatively inefficient, is that this car has only one goal, and that goal is exceptionally clear. It has to go very fast down tarmac roads. As a general principle, no machine can be optimally efficient at more than one thing. A robot that has to both climb stairs and make pancakes will be far less efficient than two distinct machines, each of which can focus exclusively on a single task. The more limited the goals, the higher one's chances of efficiency. Now, unlike the Audi sports car, our brains are not designed or evolved to be maximally efficient at any one thing. This amazing cognitive and emotional machine is a profound generalist. It comes moderately well equipped for a huge range of possible activities. Write a novel, spear fish, bring up a child, drive very fast up Fifth Avenue, sit in a high-rise office writing reports, live in a hut in New Guinea, marry, plot an assassination, live in an ice cave, go into politics, stay single, or expand a small business into the Asia market. Now, the price we pay for being generalists is that we'll be less good at any one of the many activities we perform than someone who did only one thing their whole life long. We might not be the very best at inflating party balloons. The house will be a bit dirty. We might be a bit late for the meeting. We'll not be perfect, patient, and interested dinner companions. We'll mess up the public presentation again. Someone would probably be better than we are at helping a child to paint. This might be quite depressing at moments, perhaps late at night as we look back across the day. But before we get too sad, we should realize that our less than completely optimal performance is down to one very understandable thing, that we've chosen breadth and variety over total focus and narrow perfection. And that's a very wise choice. Focusing on one thing to the exclusion of all others has its costs, as anyone who's ever spoken to an athlete who trains 10 hours a day tends to find out. There's a cost to being the human equivalent of a sports car. Unfortunately, our society has set up an absurd idea that it will be possible to do many things and do them all completely well. That's why we hear so much talk about an elusive thing called work-life balance, a perfectly optimal career and a perfectly optimal home life. This is a mad idea. Work-life balance is impossible because everything worth fighting for unbalances your life. We're not going to be at once the ideal domestic chef, childcarer, and CEO. If we're strung out across multiple roles, all will suffer, but that's okay. That you're doing too much and none of it without mistakes isn't a sign that your life has gone wrong. It's a sign of a very wise and understandable position, that you've opted for imperfect variety over flawless focus.
So, I'm going to put my video back on now. There you go. I've spent the last half an hour more talking to you about work-life balance, and now I've just played you a video that shows a very powerful argument that it's impossible. And I think that's the point, really. It's about accepting that some days will be different to others, and I think we can aspire sometimes to things that are simply not achievable. I think we need to accept that we can't be perfect at everything. But just by being conscious that we need to try and balance these things will improve matters. I think we're constantly presented with images of perfection, and we can find ourselves, if you like, comparing our sprinting ability to Usain Bolt and thinking, well, we're rubbish at running then. Or we can't be very clever because we don't understand what Stephen Hawking says, or we don't look like the contestants on Love Island, so therefore we're in terrible physical shape. It's about doing our best, as he said in that video, and accepting our flaws and our imperfections, but ensuring that we live life to the full and make sure that we try and balance these things as best we can, accepting that it will never be perfect. A good example of this I would give you is my wife used to be a midwife for 20 years. She now works in commissioning in the NHS in midwifery, but she used to be a midwife. That involved helping people antenatally, helping them have their babies, and then going to see them postnatally when they were at home in the community. And many was the time that Helen, my wife, would come home having seen somebody who was convinced they were doing a terrible job of looking after their baby, when in actual fact, they were doing a wonderful job. And they weren't suffering from postnatal depression. It was just that all their life, prior to having a baby, whenever they'd seen adverts promoting baby products, you always either see a happy, smiling baby or a beautiful, sleeping, completely pacified baby. And babies are like that sometimes, but not most of the time. Nobody tells you might have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and by 9 o'clock you still haven't even had a chance to clean your teeth. Or when you get to leave the house, you'll find out you haven't got any clothes that haven't got a bit of baby sick on the shoulder or whatever. That's what having a baby's like. But we're presented with idealized images all the time by marketing machines. And that's understandable. That's the world we live in. But we need to keep things in perspective, that there will always be elements of compromise. So we need, as it said in that video, we've made a very wise choice to be excellent all-rounders. We can't be the perfect chief executive, the perfect parent, and a wonderful chef all at the same time. We can do one or the other at various times, and we need to accept that we will always have a degree of compromise. And as I said, it's just about accepting our flaws and our imperfections, and we just need to do our best. So that's a brief précis of what I think about this. Hopefully I've helped us understand a little bit better what work-life balance is. I've talked about the benefits of this work-life balance and what we can gain by it or trying to improve it, and some practical techniques for improving our work-life balance. But I chose my words carefully there because we'll never achieve a perfect work-life balance, but all we can try and do is improve it. And by doing that, we will improve our own state of mind. We will protect our own mental health as best we can. And as I said, we do other ones of these webinars about resilience and about stress management and about mindfulness, which is hugely powerful. A lot of people poo-poo mindfulness and think that we're talking about shaving our heads and wearing orange robes and waving incense sticks around, and it's really not like that at all. It's a very useful, practical technique, and these are all available via the Lighthouse Club website. If you want to have a look, they're completely free, and you can enrol on those. Okay, I've got a couple more slides to finish, but before we do, I would like to open up for Q&A. I need to put my glasses on for this because I need to read because my eyes are too old. Hi from the Cotswolds. I got somebody from the Cotswolds. I'm in the Cotswolds. What do we got here? Can we provide the link to the resources mentioned? Yes, we can provide the copies of the slides. The link to the video will be in the slides. The video is on YouTube, actually. You can get that video on YouTube. It's very easy. So please let us know how you found the session by completing the feedback form. Does anybody have any questions? I'm waiting to see what comes through. Look, while you're typing those, maybe something will come through. Before we do, I'm just going to go on to my final slide here, which is something we always finish with at the Lighthouse Club. And if you were on one of our previous webinars, you may have seen this, but I won't apologise for repeating it because it's really important. These are our 3 golden nuggets. As I've said, the Lighthouse Club do a lot of work around supporting mental health in construction. You may or may not be aware, but construction has the highest rates of mental health problems of any sector of the economy in the UK. And there are some simple things we can all do to try and help with that. And these are what our 3 golden nuggets here are all about. The first one there says, ask twice. And what do we mean by that? Well, I mentioned about people not speaking up earlier on, about how people tend to bottle up their thoughts. And quite often we might ask somebody how they are if we have a concern about them. And they'll say, I'm fine. And people very often say they're fine when actually they're not fine. In fact, in mental health first aid training, we have an acronym for what the letters of FINE stand for. And the INE is insecure, neurotic and emotional. You can probably guess the rest of it. But if you have a concern about somebody, enough to ask them and genuinely ask them how they are when you actually mean, you're interested in the answer rather than just being polite. If they say fine and you're not convinced they are, ask them again. Are you sure? You don't seem too good to me. You don't seem yourself. I've noticed, changes in your behavior, whatever it might be. Ask them again. And just by asking them again, what we're really doing is giving somebody permission. We're saying we're actually interested and, we want to, we're happy to talk about this if you want to. And by asking them again, it makes it more likely that they might actually open up. And that is a hugely helpful thing for us all to do. And the second nugget there, you can see, seek to understand before you seek to be understood. What do we mean by that? Well, if somebody does start to talk to us and open up about how they're feeling, it's very easy for us to maybe try and fix everything and tell them where they're going wrong, or tell them there's nothing to worry about, or why are you bothered about that? It might seem completely inconsequential to us. Anxiety is a terribly afflictive thing. Lots and lots of people, it's the most common mental ill health condition in the UK, or in fact across all the world, not just in the UK. And to the rest of us, it can seem really inconsequential. Why on earth would you be worried about whatever it might be? But that's not the point. We need to not be judgmental, to put our own thoughts and feelings aside and just listen to somebody and let them explain to us how they feel. We don't need to try and fix it. We don't need to explain where they're going wrong or tell them it's silly and to pull themselves together. We just need to be a sympathetic ear to listen and be non-judgmental. And that's what that second nugget's all about. And the third one there, we've always used this. Let's just try and be a little bit more kind and aware of everybody. I don't know if any of you are aware, but last Friday, the 13th, was World Kindness Day. And I saw lots of posts on LinkedIn and across social media about people who've done random acts of kindness to other people, strangers or whatever it might be. And I think if we're all just a little more cognizant of each other and a little bit more understanding of each other, and if we just did all those 3 nuggets there, I think life would be better for all of us, quite frankly. And maybe we can try and reduce the sort of tide of mental ill health that people are worried about coming from COVID. So that was the end of my slides. I can go back to my Q&A here. I don't know if anybody does have any questions. I can't see any. Let me just, I've got 2 different feeds here. Let's have a look. We'll send out links, as people are asking for, to that video as well. No, I think we're there. Look, I hope it's been of some value to you all. Where is it? 22. We've been going 40 minutes. It's amazing how the time goes. There's some addresses there. My WMH Training is my business. There's also the Construction Industry Helpline web address there, which is an alliance between the Lighthouse Club and the CITB. There's lots of useful resources on there. There's an excellent app you can download for your phones, either Android or Apple, that helps you monitor your own mental health and mental state of mind. And it also points you to resources where you might get help if you feel you need some help. The Building Mental Health website is also there. The Lighthouse Club address too, and you can see their Twitter, Facebook and LinkedIn handles. Thanks very much for listening, everybody, and thank you for inviting us in. We're always really happy to do these talks to people. And under COVID, it's quite a nice thing to have a break in the middle of the day, I think, and we can deliver this to, I think, over the last 4 months, the Lighthouse have delivered webinars like this to well over 2,000 people. So I hope it's been some help. It just remains for me to say thank you. Please all stay safe. Remember, hands, face, space, and all that sort of stuff. Let's all look after each other, not just for our own state of mind, but let's all protect each other as well under this pandemic. And hopefully within 6 or 7 months, things will start to get back to normal. So please all look after yourselves. And thanks very much for your attention today. I hope it's been of some use, and take care. Cheers, everybody. Goodbye.